Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So this week, a couple of organizations, Climate Power, the League of Conservation Voters, and Potential Energy Coalition, they launched their Great American Build campaign. The goal here, as I understand it, is to push the Biden administration, to push political leaders in the direction that, well, we do need to rebuild our infrastructure. We do need to create good, high-quality union jobs. And we do need to address climate change. I guess the point of this is to get us mobilized, put pressure on them so they actually do the right thing. And they have a website, thegreatamericanbuild.com. We'll get links out so people can take a look at that. But labor is involved in this as well. And one of the first groups on board is the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, IUPAT. I've got their General Vice President, Jimmy Williams, on the line. This week, they signed on to it. Jimmy, I appreciate you taking time for us.
Yeah, Rick, thanks for having me again.
So walk me through this. What is this Great American Build campaign? What are you guys looking to do?
Well, so it's a big coalition with some really heavy hitters in the climate justice world, which the climate justice world's around the globe the largest movement for social change. And this group was put together to put public pressure around the issue here. If we're gonna be talking about an infrastructure program, climate has to be front and center. Stacey Abrams is involved in pretty much anything she touches. We certainly want to be there with her. She's got a pretty good acumen. But there's others. A lot of people from Hollywood are involved, but then also a lot of the bigger labor unions too. The teachers union. SEIU, us at the Painters Union jumped on board too, because the conversations are happening as we speak.
Right.
The program is about getting the word out to the American public, right? So it's more of an ad and a public messaging campaign, all designed to bring this discussion to light during this debate around infrastructure.
So now, as part of the building trades, you guys are the first building trades union to sign on to this. And, when I talk to my environmental friends, usually the fingers are pointing at you as the cause of slowing things down. Explain to me why you think it's important for the building trades to get out in front of this.
Well, I think the messaging has been missed for a while between the two movements, between the labor movement and specifically the building trades. And the climate justice community. And I think because, quite frankly, I don't think both sides listen to each other enough. And right now, I mean, it's the time to listen. And we are, and we're not the only building trades union that are engaging in these types of discussions. Our brothers and sisters from the other trades have been in these discussions too, because that's what the administration wants. He wants labor and climate to get it right. So, there is a long history, but it's a history that, we don't need to repeat history, right? We need to work together to go forward.
Right.
There are good union jobs in the old energy sector that, our members are fearful of losing those jobs. And we have to represent our membership, but we have to be at the table. The old saying of, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, is really apropos for this discussion.
No, absolutely. I was going to bring that up because one of the first things that I get from people are, labor can't be in this climate justice segment because they are the targets, and everyone always points to the pipeline. And look, I hate seeing people lose their jobs, but I think those folks who were working in that industry are the ones who are going to do well in the new industry. If we do this right. And I think that's where the fear is. The fear is we're not going to do it right, which is why I liked Governor Inslee's plan the best when he was running for president.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Nobody wants to see any union members lose their job, right? But nobody also talks about, the thousands and tens of thousands of union members that have lost their jobs already because of the economy. My union represents a very broad sector of the construction industry. I put in glass for a living. So I wasn't going to work on a pipeline. And, a good portion of our members are people that work in energy efficiency type jobs. Like, I don't know if you know this, but 70% of the wasted energy in this country comes from buildings that are poorly constructed. And we're talking about a program around infrastructure. Go big and go bold. There's tens of thousands of our members that can go to work retrofitting buildings throughout this country, and that needs to be talked about too, right? So it can't be an all or nothing strategy, right?
No, you're absolutely right. But here's the thing, and we know that our buildings are a problem. I think back, as soon as you were talking about that, I think back to Jerry Brown in 1991. 1992, talking about how we were going to retrofit all of the buildings, rewire all the buildings because of the transmission lines. We lose some just obscene amount of energy just in transmission. We've been talking about doing these things for decades now. And we haven't had a bold visionary movement. We haven't had a bold visionary policy to actually get those things done.
No, in the times now, there's almost like a demand for it. And so many young people are so moved by the climate justice movement that if the labor movement isn't a part of the discussions, then they're not going to get to experience the labor movement either. Younger people want to live in a cleaner economy or a cleaner environment, right? It's a very important issue for young voters and young workers. And, if the labor movement isn't involved, again, we're missing an opportunity to talk to a whole new generation of activists. And there's more to this too. I mean, California is a great example of how you can tie labor standards to economic investment, right? And if we're going to invest in a new, cleaner energy source in this country, whether it be renewables or other sources, we have to connect how we fund that to labor standards. There was a bill that was passed. It was probably the best organizing victory we've had as a building trades movement in a long time in California, called SB 54. They figured it out. They figured out how to tie their tax incentives to the oil companies, right, to making sure that the jobs are good union jobs with apprenticeship and with, project labor agreements on it. We can do that as a country if we're at the table. And if we're going to provide tax incentives, and if we're going to provide any sort of grants to corporations that currently may not have a unionized workforce, that's one way we can tie it together.
No, you're absolutely right. And this is one of the things I've been talking about on the program these last 57 days of this administration. I've been saying, look, the policies that Joe Biden has moved forward on, the American Rescue Plan, and some of the direction that he's taking us are transformational. We're going back and undoing the supply side voodoo Reaganomic era and all of the bad policy, hopefully, that came with it. And a part of that is this race to the bottom. Let's get the cheapest, most exploitable labor. And instead, now we're looking at how are we going to use government procurement and government spending to actually raise standards and give people a better life? Because at the end of the day, what good is having investment if it's not making our lives better? Yep.
And we have a long history in the building trades of being able to do that for the American worker through our apprenticeship programs. I don't know if the rest of the world knows this, but we're the largest self-funded secondary education system in the United States. We spend almost $1 billion collectively a year in training a workforce, and that's all private money that our members, pay for on their own through collective bargaining. Unleash that, right? Tie it to how to get good jobs. Our union's I have to say this about my union, our union. We were the first ever building trades union to elect an African-American general president 7 years ago in Ken Rigmaiden. And, there's a story within our apprenticeship programs. Our apprenticeship programs are so diverse, majority minority in most cases, pathways to good jobs, and people of color are adversely affected by our climate issues in this country more than most. So having our apprenticeship programs as ways to put the people most affected by our climate problems to work in fixing the problem just makes sense.
No, I'm with you. And back during the Obama years, when they passed the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, WIO, I think they were calling it, that was calling for mass apprenticeship programs and for states to set those things up. I don't think it did. I don't think it achieved what they had hoped. But at the time, I was talking about, the union apprenticeship programs, the painters apprenticeship programs. That's the model we should be replicating in industry after industry. going back to the idea of employers have some responsibility, workers have some responsibility, and government can bring all of that together to ensure that we get those good jobs and that ultimately those jobs pay and have good benefits. That's the important part of those. We can pay people for crummy low-wage jobs and train them to do menial stuff, but it's not going to make our society better.
No, and that's how you have to connect it, right? It's a cycle, and you have to connect it to the procurement. And you have to connect that government funding to those programs. Our programs are standing by ready. They're ready. The infrastructure is there in place around the country to be able to put people to work, train them in good jobs, and really uplift society.
TheGreatAmericanBuild.com is the website, the campaign. I guess that you guys are going to be putting some TV ads out, some social media ads. Tell me a little bit about this coalition and how it came together and how you guys got into it, because I'm kind of curious about, because this is a big build. I mean, these are big organizations.
Well, I mean, through our recent connections through the Blue Green Alliance, which has been out there for a while, and that talks a lot about manufacturing and construction as well. This conversation around people that want to organize around climate justice and jobs is about how do we get a clear message out publicly. And there's some big, like I said, financial donors to this coalition and big names to help bring light to the cause. And it's not just labor, obviously, and labor being a part of that. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those moments where it's like a lot of things. We've got these great opportunities. We've got somebody in the White House who I think will listen, that we have not had in 4 years, that wants to move us in the right direction. If we just mobilize and push. The only problem, and I'm sure you know this as well as anybody, Jimmy, is Mitch McConnell and the Republicans in the Senate at this moment. The Senate has been the place where good ideas go to die and progress goes to die. How do we get around that to get the infrastructure spending that we need, to get the kind of visionary legislation I think we desperately need?
Well, and infrastructure should be bipartisan. It should. And there's always been a willingness by some Republicans to work on infrastructure. And I think this is where we have to make sure we have a solid plan going into those negotiations. And look, if the filibuster can be used to stop an infrastructure plan, our union came out just last week publicly and said, dismantle the filibuster, right? We have to work around things that are holding back progress in this country. And if we do, we do. But I do think there's room here for dialogue with the other side too, with the Republican side of the table too, because they promised infrastructure under Donald Trump and didn't deliver. They promised it. Our members remembered that. Our members that voted for him the first time around on that issue came back to our side of the table in this last election because he didn't deliver.
Right.
They haven't delivered.
And the thing is, we had a lot of infrastructure weeks. And I love to say we got a lot of nice pictures of Donald Trump playing in the truck, one of my favorites. But we didn't actually get anything done. But we're in this moment where I think we're looking at there's not much time left. All of the experts say we've got maybe another decade or two, a decade maybe to get things in order. So there's got to be some speed. So this comes back to we've got to be hammering our senators. We've got to be reaching out to them early and often, because I don't think this is a House problem. I think we got to hammer the Senate.
Well, I think the House has to unite behind the left too, though, right? That's what's good about these dialogues that are taking place. People that maybe weren't talking to each other enough within the coalition that got Joe Biden elected are all at the table talking, which is good, because the Democrats have to push a united front through the House before it even makes it to the Senate, and that's the stage we find ourselves in right now. And like they say, the sausage is being made, and we're grinding it up, and we're going to come out with something. And like I said, our union sees it as, we do represent members that work in the old sector of the energy industry, but we also have hundreds and thousands of members that are ready to go to work in a new sector too.
And the thing is, the polling on this is, overwhelming. The American people want it. And again, this is another one of those moments where we've got a Senate that won't give the people what they want. And this is that moment. I say we hurry up and push. But the other side of this, and I look at the anger that's out there, and I look at the Trump supporters that I've spoken with. They talk about how the economy isn't what it used to be, how communities have been been just decimated. This is really an opportunity to rebuild our society and rebuild those communities that have been left behind. Because you take those people out of the coal mines and put them into a factory building wind turbines or solar panels, their lives are going to get better.
And like, well, we're not, as a building trades union, we talk about construction, but the amount of manufacturing jobs we can create here in the United States to do the onshoring of what has been shipped overseas and bring some of those jobs back, helping to rebuild too. That doesn't get talked about enough, but that's got to be part of this discussion as well.
Yeah, ultimately it means jobs. It means good paying union jobs. The website, thegreatamericanbuild.com. Hope folks will take a look at it. Obviously, we should be calling Pat Toomey. We should be calling our representatives, yelling, screaming, carrying on, all of that. Because ultimately, in my view, and this is where I want to end this up, there's an opportunity here that I haven't had in my lifetime to create good, solid, family-sustaining jobs en masse. In fact, the ILO just the other day said a greener economy could bring us 24 million new jobs globally if we just had the right policy to do it.
I think we're seeing the end of an era. I think there was a 40-year run of the conservative Ronald Reagan approach to smaller government, and I think we're seeing a real change in the way the American sentiment wants their government to operate, and we have to capitalize on that. And this is a once in a generation opportunity to do a lot of great things, not just for workers, but even trying to fix, a global crisis like climate too.
Yeah, we've got an awful lot of work. I'm glad to see the polling numbers are pushing us in the right direction. Americans are feeling more positive. 55% of us think we're on the right track. I think we move some more legislation to get infrastructure and some good policy moving. I think that goes forward, and we ultimately head in the right direction. But Jimmy, I appreciate you taking some time for us. Good on you. Good on the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. Thanks for taking time for us. Thank you, Rick. Good stuff. Jimmy Williams, General Vice President at Large of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. You can visit their website at IUPAT.org. We'll get links out. Quick break, right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.